most landlords don't do anything to encourage their people to stay in their properties. And in fact, they say things that actually encourage people to consider moving out. I don't ask people if they want to stay anymore. I thank them for being with us for the first year, but it's the first year of a whole customer loyalty program that I put in place.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And Mike Murphy at J.B. Harrison Insurance, helping real estate investors to understand and choose their best options for all their insurance needs. Call 616-868-0050 or email mikem@jbhins.com. Hello and welcome to episode 161. As you should know by now, the 2019 Michigan Real Estate Investor and Landlord Free Conference and Expo is happening right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, February 21st through 23rd. This is the largest free real estate investor conference and expo in the Midwest. And you can go to rpoaonline.org to get more information and register for free. And hopefully you've been enjoying the conversations we've been having over the past month or so with our featured speakers. And one of our most requested, popular, and entertaining featured speakers of all time is Jeffrey Taylor. You may know him as Mr. Landlord. Jeffrey will be speaking on Saturday, February 23rd at 1 p.m., and you definitely don't want to miss him. Now, this conversation that I'm about to have with Jeffrey today was recorded in 2017 and previously released as episode 57. But you'll definitely want to listen to it again because Jeffrey has so many great ideas and tips for landlords that can really help make you a lot of money. So here we go. Jeffrey, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Hey, Brian, I'm so glad to be with you. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, I know that I am looking forward to hearing you speak. I've seen you speak twice before. Even though I don't manage my own properties, I've still learned so much from hearing you talk about managing and ways to increase cash flow. But before we get into all that, I want to just start with finding out a little bit more about you. You know, who is Jeffrey Taylor and how did you become Mr. Landlord?
Well, I was a school teacher, teaching on the high school and the college level. And I was looking for ways to add extra income to what we were doing, to what I was doing, because this teaching wasn't bringing in as much as I hoped that it would. And my wife and I, we had just gotten married. And in fact, that's another whole story in and of itself, because the home that we initially bought was more than we could really afford. So a friend pointed us in a direction of another area of town where we could pick up a property, needed a little bit of fix-up, but it was a whole lot less. And we started doing fix-up and renovation on that. My wife was a tremendous support. In fact, she was the one who led the way in terms of the fix-up and renovation, if the truth be told. And so that property was working out pretty good for us, and the first one that we had moved into initially, it became a rental because we couldn't sell it at the time, so I guess you could say I was an accidental landlord, so to speak. But everything kind of went smooth with that first rental. I didn't have any nightmares, any big traumas from that, so I said, well, maybe we can find a couple of more properties to rent, buy and rent, and that's kind of what we did. We started picking up one, then another one, and another one. Now, we're talking 35, 36 years ago, and it wasn't much education around at that time. In fact, my wife and I, we would go to seminars in the D.C. area. We'd do a 3.5-hour drive just to get some education, because we knew if we were going to do this thing, we had to learn. And so we did that and got a couple of mentors and started learning and picking up properties along the way. So that's kind of how, in a nutshell, how we kind of got started with the rental property. The whole Mr. Landlord thing, that kind of just came, it kind of came unintentional as well, at least initially. A friend or a mentor of ours, Nick Kuhn, who started getting my newsletter, Mr. Landlord, because I started publishing it, by the way, as a school teacher trying to get that extra income. I said, well, to go along with the real estate that we were starting to accumulate, let's do something to get some added income so I can phase out the teaching and do the real estate full time. So I started the newsletter because I saw that there was a niche that was needed. Not much information out there on landlording, especially for the small mom and pop rental property owners. So I started doing that, and then a gentleman in Ohio, Westerville, Ohio, Nick Kuhn, he's passed away since a few years back, but he was a mentor to me, and he invited me to come out and add to what he was doing from an educational standpoint, and teaching a couple of seminars with folks that he was teaching how to buy and do landlording. So I started teaching along with him. And from there, other people kind of start to hear of my teaching and a little bit of my unorthodox way of presenting information, untraditional ideas, non-traditional ideas. And so an association would invite me to speak, and then another, and then word just kind of spread. And
yeah, it sounds like it was your teaching background that really drove you to be able to speak in front of people and share what you've learned.
Well, yeah, the teaching background definitely made it easy for me to basically just switch students and now start teaching to students who really wanted to learn for the most part and improve their success and improve their cash flow.
What were some of the mistakes that you made early on as a landlord?
Well, one of the biggest ones was just not taking things, treating things like a business. I mentioned to you, my wife and I, we had that first property that became a rental, and we put out some advertisement, and people came. They liked what they saw, and we kind of pretty much just gave them the keys. We took them at the word that they'll be able to pay us, but back then we weren't running any kind of credit checks, background checks, criminal checks, evictions, rental history, none of that. In fact, we didn't even know that such things were even made available to rental property owners. And so we did a lot on gut level. Started out, we didn't use any kind of written lease. Everything was done on a handshake. So one of the biggest mistakes, again, was the fact that we didn't treat it as a business. We did too much on gut level, too much on just a handshake. That didn't hurt us initially, but as we started picking up more properties and rolling the dice, so to speak, with different people that we were putting into our properties, we saw that we couldn't continue it, and that was the reason why we started doing the runs to Washington, D.C., so to speak, to start getting some more information and learning different things. But the biggest mistake was not treating it like a business. Today we take things very seriously. Doesn't mean we don't have fun doing it, but we always run credit checks now, criminal history, rental history. We always use written communication. Everything that we say to our residents, we now put it in writing, but back then, we weren't doing any of that. And as a result, sometimes people would come in and they'd kind of make up their own rules because we didn't have any rules to give them.
Well, what is the number one mistake that you see other landlords making today?
Well, kind of similar to what I just mentioned about myself. Number one mistake is they don't do proper screening of their applicants, and still taking a lot on gut level and kind of just eyeballing the individuals and kind of figuring, okay, they look good, they'll be all right type of thing. So I would say that's really the number one mistake that many rental property owners make. After that, not improving their lease and updating their lease from time to time to make sure it includes any changing laws for their state, and then also including some things that will help them from a business standpoint to keep their people in their properties longer and help them to increase cash flow. So after screening being number one mistake, I would say the second mistake is not learning new tricks of the trade and including that in your written communication to be able to boost your cash flow. Because a lot of people get out of this business simply because they discover that they don't have enough cash flow to survive. And one of the things that I teach on, one of the things I'll be teaching on at the upcoming conference is different ways, non-traditional ways to improve your cash flow so you're not stuck. Because let me put it another way. If you're expecting to get so much cash flow during the year, you might say, okay, that's pretty good. Maybe I'm getting an extra $100, $200 worth of net income. But when unexpected things happen and that $100 or $200 disappears, next thing you know, you're struggling. You're taking from Peter to pay Paul. And so I try to share with rental property owners, hey, let's boost your cash flow as much as possible so you have more of a buffer, so to speak, when those unexpected things happen that take away from your cash flow.
When you come to speak at the RPOA annual conference, you're going to be talking about your Take Total Control program. Can you give us a little sneak peek of that program?
That brings up an interesting point, because when people hear that term, Brian, take total control, sometimes they think I'm referring to the fact that you've got to take control of your properties or you got to take control of your residence. Really, when I talk about take control, I'm really encouraging landlords to take control of their own, what they do to improve their success. Take control of your own business procedures, your own business policies, your own strategies. You asked a few minutes ago about what mistake rental property owners make. One other one I'll mention just to tie this into what I'm saying now is oftentimes rental property owners, when things go wrong, guess who's the first person they're ready to blame?
Their tenant?
That's it. It would be their tenants, their residents. And so as a result, because they're blaming the resident because they didn't pay, or blaming the resident because they skipped out, or blaming the resident because they are not keeping the property up, well, if you keep blaming them, then you're not looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, wait a minute, what can I do differently to improve my success? What can I do to increase the chances that my residents will pay me, that they'll pay me on time, that they'll take care of my properties, that when it's all said and done, they won't skip out on me, and they'll leave the property in excellent condition so I can turn it around within a 24 to 48-hour period. But if you're continuing to blame other people, then you're not improving your own success. And I see that all the time, where landlords are so quick to blame the residents that year after year, they're not improving their own skills and their own abilities to be able to take control. So to go back to your question about the Take Total Control program, the Take Total Control starts with you, the rental property owner, and what you can do to improve your success, as opposed to taking control of somebody else. No, you take control of yourself, you take control of your own actions, and you'll find the more you're able to do that, the more success you'll have. Rental property business, or any business for that matter.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat-fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. And be sure to stop by their booth at the RPOA's annual conference. If you keep experiencing the same problem over and over, and you're blaming other people, you're blaming the wrong person.
You got it, Brian, really and that's what people do. And I don't blame them, because that's what I used to do myself. I'd see all these things going. I'd walk into an apartment, and the people have painted all the walls dark blue, and I'm quick to tell them, well, wait a minute, what are you doing? But the truth is, I never told them, well, wait a minute, you're not supposed to do alterations in the property. I wasn't clear. A lot of times people complain about individuals not lasting long in their properties, moving out after a year. In fact, the national average across the country is 50% of your residents will move out in any given year. Well, landlords look at that and they'll think, okay, well, I guess that's common nature. That's common. Let me get somebody else in, as opposed to stopping and saying, wait a minute, what can I do to encourage people to stay in the property longer? And so I started hitting on some of those themes in my presentation so I can share with rental property owners. In fact, one little simple example that I'll give you is a mistake that rental property owners make, I believe, is that they ask people every year, would you like to renew? Well, it's kind of like saying to them, if you're thinking about moving, now's the time. Go ahead, get out. Stop asking that question, because you're opening yourself up to an opportunity where they may say, well, this is a good time for me to move. I think I won't renew at this time. And you can go far beyond that. But the point I want to make here is that most landlords don't do anything to encourage their people to stay in their properties. And in fact, they say things that actually encourage people to consider moving out.
So is it really kind of a phrasing and word choice issue that they have, or is there more to it?
Oh, it's two parts. One, there's a phrasing, because one, I don't ask people if they want to stay anymore. I thank them for being with us for the first year, but it's the first year of a whole customer loyalty program that I put in place. And as part of that program, along with phrasing it a certain way, I actually offer incentives to my residents, small incentives that may cost me $25, $50, $75 to stay with me for an additional year, but that sure beats a $2,000 expense that I'll have if they move out, because that's the average cost of a turnover in this country, $2,000 to $3,000 anytime somebody moves. So sure, you bet I'll offer them an incentive of a property upgrade to stay in my property, and they're happy with that. They're not feeling like I'm just neglecting them or just feeling like I'm just taking their money and not offering them anything in return other than the main things that they're expected to have. I try to do a little bit above and beyond what the average rental property owner would do. And as a result, I'm able to keep my residents longer on average. So, again, it's two parts to it. One, it's how you communicate, because that's essential. That's essential. I went to get my master's degree in the whole area of communication, and I've come to discover, especially in the rental business, how you communicate to people can affect how long they stay, how willing they are to be cooperative with you, just the way you phrase things. But then it's not just talk. It's also action. So it's two parts to it. It's the talk, but it's also the actions to go behind it.
And going back to your Take Total Control program, can you give us an example of maybe a very difficult tenant you had in the past, or a very difficult problem that you were trying to figure out how to overcome that you were eventually able to take total control over?
Well, I mean, one that comes to mind from many years ago was I was totally out of control when it came to rent collection. I can think of one person in particular who, if I wasn't at their property by Friday at a certain time, 5 o'clock, 5:30, by 6 o'clock, 6:30, he was headed to the local bar or somewhere to drink up the rent money. And then the next day, he would blame me for not being there by a certain time, and that's the reason that he didn't have his rent money. Well, I was totally out of control at that point. Why? Because I was letting the resident dictate to me how things were going to go. You know, after learning the hard way that I can't let the residents dictate how things are going to go, that I need to set the standard and then enforce whatever those standards are. And sure, sometimes people say, well, if I don't do a certain thing, I won't get my money. I used to think that too, but I found as you put your rules in place, as you take control of what you're going to do, and then enforce your rules with your residents, the good ones will get in line. Even that resident, after I put the rules in place, he knew that if he didn't pay his money and I didn't have to be there to collect it, if he got it to me, then he'd have a place to stay. Otherwise, he found himself going to the eviction court and out of there. And so you may lose a couple of residents along the way who don't want to go along with your program, but in the long run, those are the ones you want to lose, because if not, you're going to have headaches month after month, letting them dictate to you how things are supposed to go. So, again, to answer your question, back then I was totally out of control when it came to rent collection, for one example. Now, as far as rent collection goes, I have my residents either it's automatically drafted from their checking account on agreed-upon date. Nobody's going to pick up any rent, or they're taking it directly to a designated bank that I've chosen. So 15, 20 years later, you won't find me going and collecting rent in person, which from a survival standpoint and a safety standpoint is not a good thing for a rental property owner to do. No, I don't collect any rents anymore. I count my rents.
That's a great distinction. When it comes to rental property insurance, understanding the costs, choices, and benefits can be overwhelming, and finding the right insurance provider can be frustrating. I had one company cancel 5 of my policies all at once for no good reason, and that's why I'm happy to have Mike Murphy from J.B. Harrison Insurance on my team. Mike is an independent agent who has always been able to find the right policy and the best provider for my insurance needs. Over the past 5 years, Mike has not only become my go-to insurance agent, he's also helped me manage risk, add value, and save money. If you are looking for insurance on a new acquisition, or you believe it's time to get a more comprehensive look at your entire portfolio, then Mike Murphy is the independent agent to call for all your insurance needs, auto, home, and business at 616-868-0050 or email mikem@jbhins.com. You and your wife, I should say, are still acquiring properties. You're still managing properties. Yet I look at you, and you're a very popular, very sought-after speaker and instructor, and you have a very successful business with your newsletters and your books. First, I guess my first question is, how do you even have time to still manage your properties? And my second question would be, have you built a team that helps you manage those properties?
How do I still manage? You're absolutely right. I've built a team around me. I manage my assistants. I manage individuals who help to manage my properties. In fact, I said to you way back at the beginning of this interview, so to speak, that I just came back from our annual Landlord Retreat. The whole theme of that retreat was teaching people how to manage from anywhere, whether you're right there in your hometown, working right out of your home office, or whether you're in Puerto Vallarta or wherever you are. But to be able to, how do you be able to manage your properties from wherever you are? And so part of that is being able to delegate individuals to help you. And that all starts by first you identifying what are the key things that you need to be able to do and master as a rental property owner. But once you know what those things are, you start to put procedures in place so that not only you can follow the procedures, but you can delegate part of your work to other people, and they simply follow the procedures. And it makes it far easier for you to be able to manage your rental properties and your real estate from wherever you are. And I encourage rental property owners that they need to stop long enough to start writing down what are the things that they're doing in their rental business. So if they ever want to delegate, if they ever want to start to create a team around them, that the team will be able to follow what they're doing. But most rental property owners haven't stopped to clearly write down in procedures and checklists what they do, so it makes it hard for them to turn it over to other people. And of course, when they do try to turn it over to people without any kind of written procedures, next thing you hear is complaints that, hey, they're not doing it the way I would want them to. Well, again, that's going all the way back to the idea of take total control. You got to first take total control of what you've got in place, and it'll make it far easier for people to follow along with you. So to answer your question, what makes it easy for me to do it is I've got a team in place, but along with the team, I've got written procedures and priorities that people can follow, and that's what helps me to be able to delegate effectively.
And those written procedures and systems that you've put in place, is that part of what you teach in your Take Total Control program?
Oh, sure it is. Sure it is. Because my whole goal is to help rental property owners to have more freedom. Whether you want to manage the properties yourself or you want to be able to go to different parts of the world, you want to be able to give money to your church, whatever you want to do with your time, you need to be able to have options. And that doesn't mean you don't, because sometimes people hear that and they say, well, Jeffrey, I like managing properties. I like fixing up and doing things. That's fine. I just want to give you options. And so, yes, to answer your question, part of my Take Total Control is how do you take control of your rental business so that it can run effectively, whether you're doing it or whether you're having other people do it. That's all part of that whole Take Total Control concept.
Since you are still managing your properties, or at least you have a team that's managing your properties and you're actively
involved. And when we say team, we're not talking about some 15, 20 people. We're just talking, 2 or 3 people assisting me. Of course, I've got contractors that work with me from time to time, but a team doesn't necessarily mean you got to have dozens of people with you. No, you can just have a good right-hand person. You can have 2 of the persons. You can have maybe 3 persons if you got a couple of hundred rentals or more. But a team doesn't mean that you have to have a whole army behind you. But you should have somebody other than yourself assisting you in your business as early in the game as you can.
Who are the people on your team, and what are the roles that they play?
Well, I've got an assistant who handles showing the properties, leasing the properties, taking the phone calls, got another individual that handles marketing in the property, using social media. Of course, I've got a couple of individuals working with me in terms of maintenance, handling different key aspects of maintenance. So that's just to give you a rough idea of an example of my own team that I use and have in place.
You've been doing this for 35 years, managing your properties. What are some recent tricks that you've learned? Because I'd imagine things have changed quite a bit in 35 years. What are some of the recent tricks that you've learned, and or even things that you've tried and maybe not been so successful with?
Well, I'll give you one that we just started doing within the last year that's bumped up our income. Have you ever heard the expression, the landlords, well, let me say it another way. A lot of times in the rental business, when people are applying to your properties, one of the questions they often ask the rental owner, the manager, is, will you work with me? And in the past, I've been quick to say no, because that basically means, they want to get they don't have enough money to come up with to pay the rent and the deposit. But I'm finding more and more now that even people who are qualified and have the money to pay, they still are looking for a way to maybe not pay as much, because there's so much competition out there between apartment communities and other places that are offering discounts off the rent and discounts off the deposit and no deposit, 2 weeks free. So I said, well, wait a minute, I got to be able to compete. So now when I get the question asked by somebody who's a qualified individual, hey, Mr. Taylor, can you work with us? And I say, sure, we've got two options in our lease now, where you can pay the traditional way, where maybe it's 1 month rent plus 1 month deposit, or if you want to just pay 5% more of the traditional rent, we'll knock the deposit in half, and that can save you anywhere from $500 to $600 to $700 up front. Will that work for you? And I give the resident the option. And when I present that option to qualified individuals, it's a good chance that they'll take me up on that second way. And in the long run, I actually end up with more money by using that particular strategy. And that's one that's bumped up my cash flow by several $1,000s just by using that one little technique.
So you're the master of coming up with creative landlording strategies and creative ways of working with your tenants and residents. How do you come up with these ideas? Where do they come from?
Well, they just come from different businesses. I'm one of those individuals, anytime I'm flying on a plane, going to a hotel, buying something at a store, going to a restaurant, I like to see how businesses operate and what are they doing to generate more income? What are they doing to keep more customers? My whole customer loyalty program that I now do with my residents, it all came from flying on airplanes and watching how they offer customer loyalty programs to their customers, where they'll give them perks for being in my case, Delta, being a medallion member, and I get extra perks and upgrades from time to time. And I say, well, you know what? That makes me want to fly on a particular airline more often than not. What can I do for my residents that would make them want to stay with me more often than not, as opposed to moving down the street? Well, I can come up with a customer loyalty program. Or even give you another example. If we're at a restaurant and I see, people often ask at the end of the meal for the check. Well, the waiter's not all that quick to bring the check. You know what the first thing they ask? What the waiter asks after the customer asks for a check?
Do you want any dessert?
There you go. So in essence, they're saying, can I get you something else? Is there something else I can do for you? Well, that sounds very common sense, right? But we as rental property owners, we hear from our residents, the residents say, I'm giving you a 30-day notice or a 60-day notice. Do we ask them if they like dessert? No. We start marketing for the next customer. We start giving them instructions on what they need to do to get out, as opposed to, hey, let me get you some dessert. Is there one thing that we can provide for you that will get you to stay in the place longer, eat a little bit longer, enjoy yourself? So again, I just take ideas from other businesses, and I show rental property owners, hey, these business concepts, let's use them in the rental business. Let's make this thing a success by applying super strategies, sound business principles from other businesses, and make it work for us.
Yeah, and it really seems like the common theme there is customer service. You're looking at the customer service of other successful businesses and applying them to being a landlord.
Well, Brian, that's what it all boils down to. I used to think this business was all about property management, but it's not really property management. It's more people management, and even beyond that is systems management. But that will take us into another whole seminar, and I'm going to have to stop with you in terms of the time that we have. But the point I want to make here is, being a successful rental property owner, you just got to be able to do certain things well, and one of them is find people. Another thing is keep them once they're in your property, because I mentioned to you earlier, turnover is a killer in this business. Costs you thousands of dollars, and it's the reason why many people don't last in this business, because they have so much turnover in their property. Well, customer service will help reduce turnover if you know how to have great customer service with your residents. And it doesn't mean that you have to give them the world, but it does mean that you got to be a little bit proactive and give them just a little bit on a regular basis, because if a landlord just does a little bit in this business, it separates himself from the competition, because most landlords out there aren't doing anything. In fact, they pride themselves on the fact, well, I gave them 4 walls and a floor, and they should be happy that they have a place to stay. Well, in today's age, if you really want to be successful in this business, you got to do, in my opinion, you got to do a little bit more than that. If you're looking to keep people 6, 7, 8 years at a time, which is what my goal is, I don't want to have them moving out every year, every 2 years.
Well, Jeffrey, I know you have to get going, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. But before you go, are there any other parting pieces of advice that you would like to give our listeners and people who are looking forward to seeing you come speak at our annual conference?
Well, I'm going to be excited to see, I would encourage as many people as hearing this as they can to come out and see it, because I'm going to be sharing a lot of sound business principles again, to show them how they can increase income, how they can keep people a whole lot longer, taking ideas from non-traditional ideas and showing landlords how to implement it in the rental business. So, again, I would just encourage anybody who's looking to generate more money from their properties, anybody who's looking to keep their people in their properties twice as long as what they're keeping them right now, and those who are looking to reduce their headaches in this business, and how to have more freedom as a rental property owner. That's all part of my Take Total Control information package system that I'll be sharing at the upcoming conference. And so I'm excited about it. I look forward to it. And I'm one of those speakers, by the way. I'm very interactive in my presentation. I'm not one of those that, you got to wait till I finish this to ask a question. When I come, I'm coming there to answer your questions directly, respond to you right in the middle of my seminar, because I don't want you to walk out of there not knowing clearly what you can do to improve your success based on what I share. I'll break it down as much as we need to during the opportunity I have. So I'm looking forward to being of service to as many rental property owners as I can.
Yeah, and I've seen you speak twice, and I learn something new every time. I learn a lot of new things every time. One of the things I really appreciate about your speaking style is you give very actionable things that people can follow up on. It's not just theory, it's actionable. You can do it.
Yeah, I'm not. I think it doesn't make sense to come and listen to a person talk, and when it's all said and done, you don't have 5, 6 things that you can do immediately to make a difference in your business. I'm not one of those that just shares with you theories. You're right. I purpose in trying to give ideas that people can take action on. That's something I've been doing now for 30 years.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. And you certainly shared a lot of actionable advice just in the 30 minutes we've been talking. Jeffrey Taylor, or Mr. Landlord, as a lot of people know you. And Jeffrey, you'll be speaking Saturday, February 23rd at 1 p.m. here in Grand Rapids, Michigan at the RPOA Annual Conference. And you can go to rpoaonline.org to register for free. I certainly look forward to hearing you speak again. I always enjoy your presentations, and I always learn so much. Thanks so much for talking with us today.
Thanks, Brian. God bless.
This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And Mike Murphy at J.B. Harrison Insurance, helping real estate investors to understand and choose their best options for all their insurance needs. Call 616-868-0050 or email mikem@jbhins.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.